last two to share with this one here, this piece is called SOW. And then the last piece I will share with you is called Communal Resurrection Song for Aya. This is SOW. Now you hear the word SOW, you might think of S-O. No. You might think of S-E-W, which will be really close, but no. I use the letters S-O-W because I thought about seeds and sowing seeds. This piece here is the most personal piece to me in this exhibition because it represents different generations of women in my family. As the story goes, this woman here is a representation of my great-grandmother. My great-grandmother was caught up in indentured servitude in Louisiana, which, as we all know, that was just another form of slavery. Because as they moved from slavery into indentured servitude kind of elements, the people couldn't break out of it because the bills were higher than the money which they were making, so you were perpetually stuck in this system, and so it's just another form of slavery. My great-grandmother could not remain there. So she used the creativity, the ingenuity, the cunningness, and figured out a way to get out. Now, this is not accurate to the actual dress that she was wearing, but she was wearing a hoop dress. And those people know the hoop dress is a really big dress that goes all the way down to the ground and drags on the ground. My great-grandmother had a big giant hoop dress on, and she walked to freedom with her two children underneath her dress. And I can just imagine my great-grandmother walking. Be quiet. Don't say a word. Shh. Just walking. And those kids, imagine the fear underneath the great-grandma's leg, walking along. Imagine that. You walking to freedom together, holding onto your mama's legs. The same legs that spread to bring you into this world, and now walking you to a new place, giving you a new birth, taking you on a second ride. And so one of those kids underneath my great-grandma's dress was my grandmother, who gives birth to my mother. And one of the things that they passed on from generation to generation is sewing and quilt making. That's why I use the quilt making element in my work over and over again. And I do these works dealing with patches, where I have people do different sections and I pull them all together because it's like a giant patchwork quilt. And that's why I believe all of us are individually. We all are individual patch, all individual being, with all this information that's embedded within your mind and your heart and your spirit. Yet, it's different than everybody else, but yet it's the same. That's the power. So she's sewing together these different patches and they're telling a history because at her feet is my older sister named Sandra, who is also a seamstress, who also does sewing of patchwork quilts, who also does embroidery and all those different things, and she does with sewing. My sister is an absolute whiz, and she can sew anything. She was at my mother's feet and at my grandmother's feet, who was underneath her dress, learning how to sew. She didn't come outside with us running around and doing all those sports and stuff that me and my brother were doing. She stayed inside the house and stayed with a sewing machine and stayed with a needle and embroidering and sewing, and she worked on that craft. And so as you're sitting here for my artist stories, you know that I kind of slightly pulled this from Christina's world. I just want to make sure you're caught that. And then right in here, I have this character here represents Louis Armstrong blowing his horn, and those spirits that I talked about in the other images blowing out of his horn. This is a representation of the loving couple of Virginia who in 1965 or 7, can't remember which year, but they tried to get married in the state of Virginia, the black woman and the white male, and they were denied. The shotgun house, which I used in the new piece that I just did in the studio, is a representation of a house that comes out of Africa into the American context, and it's a house structure that all the rooms line up from the front door to the back door, but it was a house in which I was born and raised in New Orleans, Louisiana. Down below them was Little Rock 9 with the AOG giant hand of God urging them and pushing them on in 1957 in the integration of public schools in Little Rock, Arkansas. Below that, the guys on the wheels of steel. I talked to you about the hip hop. He's rocking it, and he's making these different patchworks because that's another form of patchwork because he's taking samples and sounds and pulling them together, just like a visual quilt being made. And down here, the pyramids of Giza, and then the Eye of Horus and protecting over them, the L. Oh, you wonder what the L represented? It represents Linda Brent. Linda Brent, who went by the pen name of Harriet Jacobs. Harriet Jacobs, who lived in North Carolina, who escaped the overtures of a slave master for 7 years by hiding in an attic space of her grandmother's house. And you're like, why in the world would you hide inside of an attic for 7 years and not leave the plantation? All the mothers in here know why she didn't go. Because she had children. She couldn't leave her children behind. She stayed in the attic space she couldn't stand up in. That's the sacrifice that I'm talking about. It's in the fabric of America. That's the sacrifice that I'm saying that we got to remember to remember. That's the sacrifice that I said we got to open our eyes and have a deeper sense of sensitivity for each other and what we've gone through. That's why I'm telling the stories over and over again, everywhere I go. I'm not going to stop until I leave this earth. Jim Crow affected the South. It affected us heavily right here in Texas. 1963. Yeah, we had a march on Washington on the other side of the wall. People singing together, "We Shall Overcome." That was in August. But in September, in Birmingham, which is also nicknamed as Bombingham, you had 4 little girls who died in a church bombing at the 16th Street Baptist Church. Their souls are ascending to heaven. The profile, the nose, the lips is carrying them away. The Holy Spirit is carrying them up into their final resting place. What's not told about that story is that there was one more girl in the church bombing. Her name was Sarah Collins. Sarah Collins survived the church bombing. Her sister's name was Addie Mae Collins. We heard about the 4 little girls who died in the church bombing. There's a great film that was created by Spike Lee about the same story. But the one person who's not talked about very much is Sarah Collins, who survived and who had to deal with the survivor's remorse and who went from an A student to an F student because right in September, she was back in school in January. There were no counselors that came to speak to her, that took her out of class and gave her homeschooling and tried to help her get back on her feet. She had to deal with the grief of losing not only her sister, but losing those other 2 girls inside of that particular space. And so I show you her standing there again as another testament to what we've gone through to get to this place of freedom. But I also leave another strand of hope because I believe it's embedded within the new life to come, the other kind of seeds that are embedded within the sperm that hopefully will lead to this egg, and then more will see that North Star of freedom. Last piece.